In many of the previous podcast episodes, I've mentioned the idea of the female gaze, and I think it's very important that we understand the way that women see the world is slightly different to the way men think that women see the world, because men think that just because they like something, that women must also like that thing too. That's not how it works, and I think it's important that we realize the differences so that this way we have a greater appreciation for what each sex likes and how that influences the way we see beauty, especially when dealing with the opposite sex in a dating and attraction scenario. This may surprise you, but under the female gaze, and you've probably guessed this from the title of this video as well, one of the most important or preferred traits for a woman when choosing a male partner in their ratings of attractiveness were their hands. I read a comment on YouTube that's like, this guy just discovered that women like hands and now that's all he talks about. That's not true. The reason why I use the analogy of hands when trying to describe the female gaze versus the male gaze is because it's a very easy example that most people should understand. Because you have hands, you can look at your own hand right in front of you and then slap yourself in the face with it for making those stupid comments. But otherwise, let me make it clear that hands are not the only determining factor when we're comparing the male versus the female gaze. It's just one of the easier ones to understand. And partially this is because hands are indicative of a more emotional connection. For instance, you can do a lot with your hands. You can hold hands, which is intimate. You can do other things which are not so holy, but you can't do any of those emotional connection things with your biceps, right? A quick search of articles on the top 5 or top 10 physical traits that are rated as the most attractive by women shows hands to be surprisingly important. Moreover, articles often list healthy hand hygiene as being an important way by which one can make oneself more attractive. Hand beautification, including rings, bracelets, nail varnishing, and more recently, hand skin rejuvenating with medicine or cosmetic surgery, stress the cultural importance of hand appearance as proposed by Etkoff 1999. This importance may be relatively large in moderate or cold climates where hands after the face are the second most visible body part. However, traditional hand beautification, quote-unquote manicures and acrylic nails and so on, are really dominated by women more so than men, which leads us with the question of why both men and women find hands to be equally as important. Think about it. Women emphasize the daintiness and the slenderness of their hands, whereas men don't do much hand beautification work at all, and yet they're still a very important and attractive feature on a man's physique. What makes a woman's hand attractive is a lot easier to explain by using the beauty standards used in a salon versus what makes a man's hand attractive, where if men are typically not getting their hands manicured at salons, then what criteria are we using to define what an attractive hand is? In this video, we're going to talk about 3 reasons why hands may be considered an important marker of genetic quality for men, and these are 1. Vascularity, or the prominence of veins. 2. Hand proportions, including your finger length, symmetry, and most interestingly, the 2D to 4D ratio, if you've heard of this concept before, which is the difference between the second and fourth digits of your finger, and this has some links to prenatal testosterone exposure. Let's talk about hand vascularity. In a recent video, we looked at Corp's husband's hands, the YouTube celebrity, and I think we rightly described it as a thirst trap, as it seemed to give his audience the impression of physical attractiveness. The very first thing that you can notice about his hands is the vascularity, and that's one of those more prominent features that many male hands have over female hands. The question of why the female gaze finds this so attractive is really one of 2 reasons. For one, vein prominence in any part of the body, particularly on the calves, thighs, biceps, forearms, and obviously the hands, tends to indicate some sort of strength. As any gym bro in the audience will be fully aware, a person's muscles do swell when you're working out, and the swelling in the muscle pushes the veins to the surface, making them more pronounced. Also, those veins have increased blood flow, making them larger and more noticeable. However, the veins become particularly pronounced when there is a lack of subcutaneous fat, which is arguably one of the more important beauty standards in men. You've never seen a man's beauty being praised due to his curviness, for example, only his angularity or sharpness and the strength that his physical features give off. These are 2 reasons why vascularity in hands may be particularly prized, and the first is that one cannot as easily improve the appearance of one's hands in the same way that they can do for biceps or legs, for example. So in that sense, it's an honest genetic indicator of fitness. Much like your height, it's very difficult to change, much like your facial features, which are bony and difficult to change, obviously speaking non-surgically, and it's for this reason that muscles aren't as impressive as men tend to think, which is where we get this topic of the female gaze versus the male gaze. When we're talking about curviness in that example, I do understand that some people are into dad bods, some people are into men who are a bit fluffier on the sides, the bear look, I get that. But when talking in general terms, the beauty standards for men are still and will be for a long time fit and athletic looking men. This doesn't mean that you're going to be overly indulgent on food, and nor should you be overly indulgent on steroids to achieve the other extreme of that body type. The second reason on this theory is that attractive hands may actually act as an indicator of hand grip strength, which is one of the best biomarkers of cardiovascular and general health, which in turn is an indication of, again, genetic quality. When asked, the reasons women tend to give for a strong looking hand is that they can imagine men using them to protect them, and in doing so, make them feel secure and cared for. We can see this from one poll on bodybuilding.com, obviously the finest academic source, I'm just joking, in which over 70% of women said that they had a slight or strong preference for vascularity in men, although to be fair, it could just be men pretending to be women and then just saying what they want to hear. There isn't a whole lot of scientific rigor on vascularity in hands specifically. There is some stuff on vascularity in general, but not much on hands, so we're extrapolating those theories into being applied for hands. However, if you look at any thirst trap on TikTok, any hand related thirst trap, those hands all have very similar characteristics of being very veiny and vascular, so it's not that much of a stretch. With that being said, let's take a look at the academic literature. The fitness indicator hypothesis suggests that exaggerated secondary sexual characteristics, in other words, sexual traits which are used to attract partners but are not necessarily used in the act of procreation in and of itself, are cues of genes that increase reproductive success. In 6 studies, the hypothesis that muscularity is one such cue was tested by Frederick and Haselton of the University of California, and as predicted, women rate muscular men as sexier, more physically dominant, volatile, and funnily enough, less committed to their mates than non-muscular men. It was consistent with the inverted U hypothesis of masculine traits, however suggesting that only a moderate amount of muscularity was preferred, exactly what I said before about the fit and athletic look. The body type of a swimmer is probably the best example, rather than being overly indulgent in one or the other extreme. This suggests a almost parabolic relationship between the amount of muscularity you have, with there being a sweet spot for the optimal muscle to attractiveness benefits, rather than just brute forcing and getting as much muscle as you can. Women also therefore seem to want muscularity consistent with what it indicates rather than what it brings practically, to the extent that ironically, too much muscle can be a put-off, as it may be a dishonest indicator of genetic quality. As Derek from More Plates, More Dates would put it, you get super physiological amounts of muscle through exogenous testosterone. That's hardly an honest indicator of your genetic fitness. So what does this have to do with hands? Well, one cannot fake or improve their hand grip strength. I don't know if you've tried, I did for a while because I'm a rock climber. Hand grip strength is a non-invasive measure of physical health that is negatively correlated with disability, morbidity, and mortality rates in adults. So having more hand grip strength does help with just being a generally healthier person, and your forearm muscles are some of the hardest to train. They take forever. You can do as many exercises as you want. You can't speed it up. There's no way you can speed that up. Hand grip strength is also highly heritable, showing that there are many genes indicated to its presence, and it's also indicative of hand grip strength of blood testosterone levels and levels of fat-free body mass, so primarily bone density and muscle mass. In other words, your hand grip strength is heavily correlated with your athletic prowess. A particularly interesting study by Gallup et al. Investigated whether hand grip strength was related to measures of body morphology, such as shoulder to hip ratio, waist to hip ratio, second digit to fourth digit ratio, so on and so forth, or like aggressive behavior or sexual history in 82 men and 61 women. And they found that hand grip strength was indeed correlated with shoulder to hip ratio, aggressive behavior, age of first sexual intercourse, and promiscuity in men, but not in women. These results then do suggest that there is some level of sexual desire that's associated with hand grip strength, which in turn is influenced by your hand proportions and just a little bit by your fat-free mass. It therefore appears to be an honest signal of genetic quality in men, which suggests why vascular hands might just be seen to be particularly attractive to some, but not all women. The 2D to 4D ratio, or the second digit to fourth digit ratio, is something that it's not necessarily controversial because there is a lot of science on it, but it's something that's not very well understood, and so I'm going to talk about it for the first time on the channel here. The ratio between the length of the second digit and the fourth digit, so this 2D to 4D, is sexually dimorphic, with mean male 2D to 4D being lower than mean female 2D to 4D. In other words, men have larger differences in size between their second digit and their fourth digit on their hand. By digit, we just mean fingers. This is because 2D to 4D ratios are negatively correlated with prenatal testosterone and positively correlated with prenatal estrogen. This is because the same genes that control the testes or ovary growth, the homeobox and Hox genes, also control the growth of the fingers. Other studies have shown that male faces with extreme features associated with testosterone, or as I like to call them, testosterone ornamentation, are perceived as dominant and masculine. This can be strong brow ridges, strong jaws, so on and so forth. I've talked about it on the channel ad nauseum. Women have been reported to prefer more masculinized male faces, as they may consider testosterone markers to be an honest indicator of good health, and such considerations may underlie their aesthetic preferences. Honest indicators of genetic health basically refers to things about yourself that you can't change, not easily at least. I mean, surgery sure, but not easily, and that's why they're an honest indicator of your genetic health. In addition, pronounced testosterone facial markers are also associated with dominance and several antisocial personality traits. This suggests that female aesthetic preferences may be an adaptive compromise between positive attributes associated with higher than ever aged testosterone and attributes associated with more extreme masculinization, such as extreme systematizing or a lack of empathy, or more seriously negative traits such as your dark triad traits of Machiavellianism, narcissism, and psychopathy. And we've made a video on that aesthetic of those with dark triad traits, so you can refer to that. It's important to note that even though women generally find men with masculinized traits more attractive, they may not necessarily choose them as long-term sexual partners due to their association with these dark triad traits, as discussed above. You know, when a face looks aggressive or it looks like it's toxic or it's going to cause trouble in your life, that's what these extreme masculinization effects have, and they're often associated with dark triad personalities. Every on-screen portrayal of James Bond, Agent 007, has featured men with these extreme masculine characteristics, and that's why they're oftentimes depicted as being unable to maintain long-term relationships. If the 2D to 4D ratio is associated with high testosterone and thus high masculinity, we would expect women to find hands with a lower 2D to 4D ratio to be more attractive, and indeed we do. A study by Saino et al. Found that men avoided opposite-sex right hands manipulated as to look more masculine, in other words with a shortened second digit, while women preferred men's hands with a more masculine shape with a elongated fourth digit, or the ring finger. They used the same hand image, but generally manipulated the finger length to ensure that the experiment was controlled, in other words, that no variables were impacted other than the independent, and the subject's judgments were as accurate as possible. These results suggest that women prefer men who have been masculinized prenatally, and in an evolutionary perspective, women may have selected to prefer a minimum threshold of masculinization as the ability to withstand testosterone, which is quite immunosuppressive and can also cause deformities during development, demonstrates very high genetic fitness. Finally, we turn to proportion. As we've talked about many times on the channel, facial and bodily symmetry is probably the foremost indicator of attractiveness, and apparently, I was quite surprised to hear this, it does extend very strongly to hands as well. According to Dane 2009, there is a correlation between hands, feet, and face symmetry and with attractiveness. And indeed, bodily and facial attractiveness in general suggests that there is an existing underlying common factor between these traits, and this factor is usually the biological or genetic quality of an individual, as proposed by Candler in 2003. In a later study by Kozinski 2011, it was found that facial attractiveness showed correlation with hand attractiveness in both sexes, but particularly men, with correlations ranging from 0.32 to 0.38 for men and 0.21 to 0.28 for women. So these aren't very strong correlations, but they are correlations that are statistically significant nonetheless. They also found significant correlations between perceived averageness, a sign of low genetic mutational load of 0.23 of the hand and face in men, whereas there was no significant correlation for women. Furthermore, the fattiness of the hand and of the face had 0.3 correlations, and in men compared to 0.23 in women, suggesting that hands are really the precursor to how attractive your face is expected to look, which is precisely why Corpse's hand reveal and his face leak was so problematic for his audience. They expected a certain image as portrayed by the attractiveness of his hands, and if his face doesn't live up to that as he was unfairly doxed, then the illusion is incongruent. Interestingly enough, hand femininity was also seen to be important for both sexes. Hand femininity was defined by the slenderness of the hand and the length of the fingers, and up to a point, more feminine hands were actually preferred in men on average. Kaczynski hypothesized that a hand with a feminine or a slender shape may be a signal of not only biological quality, but also socioeconomic status. People descending from families of higher socioeconomic status have been shown to have a more slender body by Sundquist and Jonassen, 1998, and thus may also have more slender hands. Slender hands with long fingers are perceived as shapely and gallant by Jacobitz et al. 2005 and have been used for playing instruments like the violin or piano rather than hard physical labor as proposed by Wagner, 1988. There you have it. That brings us to the end of this video, and so let's conclude this with a quote. The hands of a man will do many things. They provide comfort, they provide strength, they provide pleasure, they provide protection, they provide tenderness, they provide a life. Proof, if we ever needed any, hands are important.